Welcome to Eat Sleep Nerd, a podcast where you can check out, go AFK, and relax with us as we discuss all things nerd. Comic books, video games, movies, TV shows, and anything else that gets geeks more worked up than Hollywood, realizing video games have good stories.
Welcome to episode number 40. I'm your dorky DJ, Corey Winter, and as always, I am joined by my nerdy brother, Josh Winter, and our geeky friend, Christian James.
Fuck 'em.
In this episode, our spoiler review and discussion for episode 1 of HBO's The Last of Us. Plus, we get back into the news with stories such as Ubisoft delaying Skull and Bones, again, HBO Max's price increase, Xbox announcing a game showcase, Sherlock Holmes being allowed to smile again. We also share our trailer reactions for Beau is Afraid, Renfield, and the latest Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania trailer. And before we get into it, don't forget to share this show with everybody and click that subscribe button or follow button on whatever app you are listening to this podcast on.
Ring that bell, baby.
So, elephant in the room. Jason's not here.
Yeah, Jason went down a little bit.
He's down for the count.
He jinxed it. He
did. He said it out loud.
On the last episode, before like
out loud.
60 seconds until the last episode, he said, and we were talking about being sick, and he said, "I'm not anywhere near any of you, so I'm fine." Well, like literally the next day.
Literally.
We're not going to talk about what he's dealing with. He's dealing with some health issues. So he's got the week off. Hope he does better. But we're missing him. This was supposed to be a big episode for us because we were going to be talking about Kaleidoscope from 4 different perspectives. But we're going to delay that just so we can get his take on it. We're missing you, buddy. Hope you feel better.
Come back to us.
So, insert geeky hijinks. Go.
Well, for me, I actually have something to talk about. Well, it's not really that, cool, but whatever. Anyway,
Cool.
Last week I got into The Bad Batch.
Okay. Star Wars.
Yeah. Wanted something new, something fresh for the eyes. But I did like how the show started off with the Order 66, and I was like, oh, going straight to the point. Love it. Just a bunch of just murder in animated form.
Don't ease you into it at all.
Oh yeah. No. But as a Star Wars fan, I enjoyed it.
So what is the premise of The Bad Batch?
They are the Bad Batch, or a group of clones that are genetically different from the others.
In what way?
They're bad.
Well, I'm getting that. So they're,
Yeah.
So they're defective.
Yeah. It's basically like around the Clone Wars. You actually see it in like the first episode where they're back at the base, and literally everyone looks the same because they're clowns, and these other guys have like scars and look totally different,
Even though they are the same.
Even though they are the same.
Okay.
And as you go through the first episode, you like the I forget his name, Tarkin.
Mhm.
He's realizing that when they set out the order, none of them really followed through because apparently they have some kind of like chip in their head that makes them do whatever because they're clowns.
But these ones don't.
These ones don't. But one actually had like, I'm trying to follow orders. He ended up getting captured. And of course, he's like the hot shot of the group.
Of course.
So of course, he makes the best bad guy. So, but yeah, it started out pretty good.
I know this show has gotten rave reviews. I just have not watched it yet.
Well, everything from that studio that did the Clone Wars and Rebels.
Yeah.
Everyone says it's good. I've just never made myself sit down and watch it.
Yeah. I think the second season just came out like earlier or like later in the year,
Earlier
last year
than now.
Yeah. I feel like it would be a good one to get into.
Might check that out next week.
Yeah.
So I didn't do too much geeky things this week. I did actually finish Mythic Quest, and season 3 that was just airing this past couple months. It kind of like reset the table, like the core group of characters kind of split up, but the end of this season kind of reset the table and actually like it's getting back to how the show started. So I'm looking forward to season 4. Awesome show. I loved every second of it. But aside from that, I got back into Life is Strange 2 because I had to put it off for a little bit because it was so freaking depressing. But I finally finished episode 1 out of 5 of Life is Strange 2. So Jason would be proud of me. Loving it. So programming notes. Obviously, I said we're delaying Kaleidoscope one more week. We're waiting for Jason to get back. Obviously, we'll be continuing our Last of Us stuff over the next couple of weeks. But you guys remember how I said I am committing to talking about video games twice a month for the rest of the year. 2 brand new 2023 games every month. So I have made my list for the next, I guess, 4 months. Yeah, it's through April. So games coming up that I will be reviewing. I'm setting it in stone. I'm committing to it. Forspoken, the Dead Space remake, Deliver Us Mars, Hogwarts Legacy, Scars Above, The Day Before, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, which I think a lot of us will be kicking in on, and Dead Island 2. So that'll take us through April. Then looking a little bit further ahead, we'll have the new Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League game coming out in May. I'm going to be trying to play Diablo 4 and some other games coming out later this year that still have TBAs on them.
You know what you won't be playing? Skull and Bones.
Skull and Bones. Yeah, so I was making this list and I was like, ooh, should I put Skull and Bones on here? And I did not because I was like, surely it's going to get delayed again. And literally the very next day, it's like, ooh, it got delayed again. So, yeah.
That hurts.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I'm still not convinced it's a real game.
Well, you know what, boys?
I think they made like a collection of screenshots and released it like 3 years ago, and that's it.
Well, you know what? Let's just get into it. Let's get into our geeky news. All right, so our first story is what we were just talking about. So Ubisoft, or Ubisoft if you're American, Ubisoft has canceled 3 unannounced games, plus delayed Skull and Bones for the 6th time. The company has announced a new strategy amid financial troubles and recent game underperformance. So Ubisoft has announced that it has, for the 6th time, delayed Skull and Bones, as well as canceled 3 more unannounced games amid major changes in the industry. The underperformance of Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope and Just Dance 2023, and an upcoming restructuring. In a press release today, Ubisoft outlined a new strategy for the remainder of the fiscal year, as well as lowered expectations for the last fiscal quarter. Ubisoft explains the move as a result of the company facing major challenges as the industry continues to shift towards mega brands and long-lasting titles that can reach players across the globe, across platforms and business models.
That was way too many quotes.
Yeah.
Okay. Before we even get, I'm calling shenanigans.
How so?
Because they have one of the greatest franchises on the face of the planet, and they're not doing anything with it.
That could be any multiple of things. Which one?
Tom Clancy.
Yes. So that is my biggest freaking takeaway from this. This is a self-inflicted wound, and not on the developers. Like, the developers, like, they do good work. They make solid games. But
the people telling them what games to make are idiots.
Like, go back 10 years. Tom Clancy games sold buttloads because they were good, fun experiences. And they just shifted away from that to make multiplayer run-and guns that are the same as every other game in the market.
Yeah, it's best. It's not always best to go with the market.
Well, I mean, okay, so first off, their list of underperformers is hilarious. Yeah. So first off, I didn't know we were still making Dance Dance Revolution games.
Just Dance.
Sorry, Dance Revolution games.
No,
literally, it's Just Dance.
Just Dance.
Sorry.
I see where the confusion was.
I was like, wait.
But it's the same game, though.
Yeah, basically.
I couldn't have scripted that any better. That was great.
Yeah, it's DDR without the mat.
Yeah. Okay, first off, that's just a stupid game.
Yeah.
So how high were your expectations for this game? Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Mario vs. Rabbids comes out on one console, and it is one of the lower selling consoles as far as hardcore video gamers go. So again, what were your expectations? The only thing you've gotten from your biggest brand, again, Tom Clancy, over this last year was an Alien expansion / sequel / redo for Rainbow Six, which everyone said the exact same. What is happening? What is? It doesn't even matter if it's good. That's not the brand you put that on.
Yeah.
Tom Clancy rolled over in his grave.
Yeah.
6 times.
6 times. So, no, I 100% agree with Corey. This is completely self-inflicted.
And I feel like in a business aspect, when someone immediately goes after that they're handling their financials poorly, well, you better just count them out.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if you can't handle the money right, then obviously you're not handling the rest of your business right.
Yeah.
And these games are going to come out. Yeah.
That's what the money's for.
Yeah. And it's like, you're obviously not going to produce any kind of real game if your financials are in trouble.
Yeah. But where is Splinter Cell?
Yeah.
Where is Ghost Recon? We got Wildlands and the sequel to Wildlands. I don't remember what it was called.
Great point. Yeah.
And even those were cool, but like,
yeah, those were fun games. They just weren't Tom Clancy games.
Yeah, like it's kind of like you said, like it was good and it was fun and it was different. I think that's why I liked Wildlands way better than I liked the sequel.
Yeah.
I don't even remember the sequel's name.
Great point.
That one. And
yeah.
It's it's neat. The idea of operators was getting really popular at the time. So that was actually a smart move. But like bring back the classic franchises. Oh, and it should be single player.
Yeah, and they also have big franchises like Assassin's Creed and Far Cry, and like
where's that at?
Well,
where's that at?
What?
I mean, for a little while there, we were cranking out like 2 Assassin's Creed games a year.
So a couple years ago, I guess it was actually last year, they said,
they're moving
we're shifting away from yearly releases, and they announced like 5 Assassin's Creed games all at once. One is going to be coming out this year. I forget its name. Mirage, maybe.
Yeah,
that's correct.
But
that was
now
actually it's going to be going back to the roots of the Assassin's Creed franchise, which sounds promising, because the most recent games have been like RPG type of things. But they have other ones, like several other Assassin's Creed games coming out.
And isn't it supposed to be like a persistent game engine or something like that, where it's like it's all? Sure. I remember thinking it was weird. Like it sounded cool, but basically it would be like one big server, and you just buy different adventures.
Yeah.
To go into it. So, which is interesting, but now it's starting to sound like a game as a service. And we all know what those end up being.
So I think it's also worth noting that Yves Guillemot, he is the CEO of Ubisoft, and he sent out an email to the company, so all the employees, saying, and I quote, "Today more than ever, I need your full energy and commitment to ensure we get back on the path to success. I'm asking that each of you be especially careful and strategic with your spending and initiatives to ensure we are being as efficient and lean as possible." He went on to say, this is the biggest pipeline in Ubisoft history for the upcoming games for this next fiscal year. He also said, kind of controversially, "The ball is in your court to deliver this lineup on time and at the expected level of quality and show everyone what we are capable of achieving." So he's literally kind of just passing the blame. Like, if we don't succeed this next couple of years, it's kind of on you guys.
Yeah, that's crap.
Yeah.
He's like, he pretty much put out like, hey, I said what I had to say as a boss, but if something fails, it's not my fault.
I think that's looking at it from the point of view of being offended. I think what he was trying to say is, at the end of the day, you're the ones who make the thing.
I mean, yeah.
You whether or not it succeeds is going to be based on the level of work that you do.
Yeah.
So don't get me wrong. I definitely see how you could interpret it the way you interpreted it, but I don't know. And again, you also have to take into the context, like Christian said, clearly there's been some mismanagement going on, and he does need to eat that. I think he should have balanced it by saying, hey, we've restructured, we're buckling down too, but at the end of the day, you're the one who makes the thing.
Yeah, so kind of like taking that back to just where they are financially and how this is kind of affecting the company as a whole and what this actually means for them. So Ubisoft is also depreciating 500 million euro of research and development on upcoming premium and free-to-play games and the games they're canceling, and is looking to both focus on fewer games going forward and potentially restructure and reduce costs in the coming year. It has reduced its net bookings target for the quarter ending in December to 725 million euro from its previous target of 830 million euro.
See, and that's a good point too. Like, they do put out a ton of games.
Mm-hmm.
Think of your super successful studios, though. Like Rocksteady, it's been like 4 years since they put out a game. Rockstar, they put out one game a decade. So, I mean...
I was right. Assassin's Creed Mirage, that is the one coming out this year. But the noteworthy thing we've actually kind of skipped over is Skull and Bones, delayed for a 6th time. So...
Is it noteworthy? Like at this point, is that no?
Well, that was kind of like the headlining thing. That's kind of like what kicked off this entire story was Skull and Bones has been delayed again after already being in development hell for a decade now. And we were getting like 2 months away from its most recent release date. So the new target looks to be early 2023, 2024, which is most likely fiscal year.
Yeah. Okay.
So the earliest we could get it is April of this year, and as late as December of this year. Or
it'll get delayed again.
Or
I just
never.
don't think it's a real game.
Even if it is a real game, at this point, I think it's just time to cancel it. Like, put your efforts and development resources
Into something else.
Something else.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah, I feel like they released those pictures and people were just like, oh, cool. Can't wait to see it. And they're like, oh, no.
Yeah.
We haven't thought about this before.
yeah. So I don't know. Ubisoft.
If you want to play if you want to play Skull and Bones, just boot up your copy of Black Flag.
Yeah.
And move on with your life.
Yeah. That's Ubisoft. Let's move on to our next story. Ooh, where's my little transition thing? All right. So HBO Max is about to get more expensive in the US. This is affecting both new and existing subscribers. So HBO Max has announced its first ever price hike as the streaming service and home of Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, and the upcoming Last of Us series will increase to $15.99 a month. Currently priced at $14.99, the $1 increase is the first bump in cost for the service since it launched in May of 2020. So comparing this to other prices of other streaming services, this now puts it as the most expensive when you're looking at the tier, like the standard plans without ads. So HBO Max is going to be essentially $16. Netflix is just below that at $15.50. Prime is $15. Hulu is $15, and Disney Plus is $11, and Apple TV Plus is still sliding in there at $7. So HBO Max, among the big players in the streaming services, is now going to be the most expensive.
It is also worth noting, though,
I love when you say that.
that they don't have they don't have like 87 tiers,
Yeah.
right? Do you want ads or not? That is literally the only difference in their tier structure. So looking at it as that way, like, yes, it is their most expensive tier of two. Like, I don't know. That to me is not a big deal. I do think it's a bold move to do it after you canceled and cleared out half the content on your app.
Yeah.
Like, I'm okay because most of the stuff I watch was untouched.
Yeah.
But a lot of shows got booted. Oh, and you owe me another $1.
And it's the big thing is that this price change is actually effective immediately as of January 12th. So if you're currently paying for HBO, your price has gone up as of this recording.
I am not.
Yeah. So HBO, do you think it's really worth $16 a month?
Not anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I've probably spent a good 30 minutes on the app before, just trying to find something new.
Mm-hmm.
Nah.
Yeah.
Can't do it.
If the shows if your comfort shows are on there, it's worth it.
Because like we've argued, Netflix is not worth $15.50 anymore, which is essentially what this price is. Do you think HBO has better value than Netflix does?
At this moment, no.
Yeah. But for me, there are different hubs that they have. As old as I am, I love watching Looney Tunes.
No, I get what you mean though. Like, it is it is one of the better apps. Like, as far as the app itself goes, as far as organization and being able to just stumble onto things, it's not bad. So no, I just think it's weird timing.
Yeah.
And it just seems a little desperate.
It's a bold move, Cotton.
All right, let's move into our next story. Video games. So Xbox and Bethesda are going to present their developer _direct live stream on January 25th. Yes, they're titling it Developer Direct with an underscore between the two words for some reason. So Developer _Direct. Pronounce the underscore.
Because technology.
So Xbox and Bethesda will present a Developer _Direct on Wednesday, January 25th, providing fans with an inside look at some of the games coming to Xbox, PC, and Game Pass over the next few months. Presented by the game creators themselves from studios including Arcane Austin, Mojang, I forget how to pronounce it, Turn 10 Studios, and ZeniMax Online Studios. the developer _direct, will focus on big features, extended gameplay showcases, and the latest info for Xbox games launching in the next few months, including the Elder Scrolls Online, Forza Motorsport, Minecraft Legends, and Redfall. And to dedicate the proper amount of time for a deep dive into Bethesda Game Studios' Starfield, a standalone show is in the works. Fans can tune in on Xbox channels on Twitch and YouTube, and Bethesda channels on Twitch and YouTube at 12 p.m. Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern time on January 25th to see all the latest on these aforementioned games as well as a few other ones.
Where's the Elder Scrolls 6? Where's it at? Where's it at? You gave us a teaser trailer 4 years ago.
So I was listening to the What's Good Games podcast, this most recent episode that they had. And they had Paris Lilly on the episode, and he's a big voice in video game things. He actually used to work with Xbox and stuff like that. Elder Scrolls 6 kind of came up in conversation. He was just like, he doesn't expect that until probably 2030.
That's wild.
Like, he is saying there's no way that game comes out this current generation of consoles. He's thinking at least another 8 years.
Wow.
That is wild. And yet I completely believe it.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so Xbox recently they have not really talked about their games, and that's kind of noteworthy because the past couple of years they've made a big splash in acquiring all of these developers like Bethesda.
And then nothing
obviously
came out.
Yeah, and they're still embroiled in legal issues with trying to acquire Activision, but that's probably not going to happen. But they did acquire Bethesda, like that went through. So like all of the Bethesda games, they're theirs now. But nothing has really been announced for any of these games. They have been no shows for things such as the Video Game Awards in December. They didn't show a single thing, while places like Sony and Nintendo did. So they're finally saying, hey, we actually have stuff to show off. So this is going to be a good event to see what's actually coming up for Xbox exclusives. It's kind of sad that we don't have a specific date for when Starfield is going to be showing off its stuff, because that is kind of probably the big flagship game they have coming out sometime soon, hopefully. Still no release date for that one.
So that's actually kind of what I was thinking when I'm looking at this lineup. It's neat that you're doing a show. It doesn't really look like you're showing off that much. Like Elder Scrolls Online, which is fun. I love Elder Scrolls Online. But like you're going to show off maybe an expansion or two. Okay. Forza Motorsport, neat. I love Forza. Forza's a lot of fun. Probably one of the more solid racing games. But it's kind of like deciding you're going to do a game show for the new Madden. Like,
yeah, like what else do you want to show off?
Like it's the only thing that's going to happen is it's going to look a little better, and maybe you're going to change a mechanic or two. Like it is fundamentally going to be the same game you've always seen. Minecraft Legends, the premise of the game is that it doesn't really change very much. And then Redfall, I don't even remember what Redfall is. But
so that's the young one coming from Bethesda. Originally, it was actually supposed to come out after Starfield, and I think that kind of like got flipped when Starfield got delayed. So now Redfall's coming out. It's supposed to be a first-person shooter multiplayer game. Not really my thing, but it's going to have like vampires and stuff like that. It's going to be pretty cool. It looks like a lot of people should like that one. It does say showing off these games, including these 4. So there actually might be more games they're showing off, but these are going to be like the big 4 focuses of it. Yeah, to your point, that is not a lot compared to what...
That doesn't scream, I need a showcase.
Yeah.
I guess is the best way I can put it.
Yeah, this
I'm not
is like
saying,
a 10-minute conversation with somebody.
Yeah, like this is... Like these are, like I said, I mean, and don't get me wrong, if you're a fan of any of these properties, I'm sure you're going to have a great time. You're going to be really excited. But like, none of this screams, let's have a showcase.
Yeah.
Except for Starfield, which is going to be a different showcase.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that during this showcase on the 25th, they'll put a date on when to expect the Starfield showcase. So hopefully that's coming soon, because at the moment, Starfield is still scheduled for early 2023, which could be anywhere in the first 2 quarters. So hopefully by summer we have this game, but who knows? So yeah, we have not gotten any gameplay from this game except for that original like teaser of the gameplay. So hopefully this, whatever this Starfield showcase is a huge like hour-long show where they really just go into the nitty-gritty of what this game has, because there's some debate on whether or not this game is actually going to be worth all the hype around it. But
I was going to say, when I saw the trailer that they did put out, I was not that hyped.
I'm still hyped.
I wasn't.
I have hope.
It actually de-hyped me a little.
Oh. I'm looking forward to it. I'm just looking forward to Xbox showing us something, showing us that they actually are making games. So hopefully they'll have something awesome to show. So let's move into our next story.
So in a hilarious and sad turn of events, not that the turn of events were sad, but just that this was a situation in the first place. As of this year, 2023, Sherlock Holmes has completely entered the public domain, which is neat. And more importantly, means that Sherlock Holmes is allowed to legally smile. And the premise behind it was there's been a big debate over what constitutes public domain when you have a character who's been published over multiple years. And so the idea was the way that US copyright is set up, 70 years after, I can't remember if it was after the death of the originator or after publication. It doesn't matter. Point is, after a certain amount of time has passed, the character enters public domain. However, the question becomes, if a character has new stories, does that mean that if that's the story you're adapting, you can't use the character? And so on. So, and it gets very convoluted very, very quickly. And you have to remember that Sherlock was published over about 20 years. So even though his first stories went into the public domain, and technically he became public domain, anything in his later publications did not. And so for a long time, the Arthur Conan Doyle estate was arguing that any interpretation that has a warmer, more kind, and emotional Sherlock was still copywritten.
Pause. How do you define, like, how do you separate not nice Sherlock from nice Sherlock?
So he was published he has 4 full books and a little over 50 short stories that were collected in a few different formats. When the character was first published, he was very Dr. Houseian. Mm-hmm. He was very cranky. He was which House was based on Sherlock Holmes. But
what?
You didn't know that?
Wow, disconnected the dots.
Disconnected those dots.
Oh, they didn't even try to hide it. His name is House Holmes. They both live at 221B. They both had a substance abuse problem.
Great detectives.
Yeah, they're both incredible detectives. Arthur Conan Doyle was a doctor. He just started writing this detective story, and that's what he ended up being famous for.
Wow. This is even more mind-blowing than the Ash Ketchum thing.
So anyway, when he first started the stories, Holmes was very antisocial. He was very cranky. Today, he would probably be on the spectrum. He was just not a warm and kind person at all. As the stories went on, events in Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's life affected him, and he started changing the character in the books a little bit. He lost his brother and I think his son in one of the world wars. And basically he just got tired of being so dark all the time, and he started trying to lighten things up a little bit. And so towards the end of his short stories, especially after he returned from the dead, Sherlock Holmes became a little more kind and became a little more emotional and happier. And you know, don't get me wrong, it wasn't a complete character change, but I mean, you know, we've all seen that arc before where the grumpy old man lightens up. That's half of Tom Cruise's role, or Tom Hanks's roles now. Yeah. But so anyway, the Doyle estate was arguing that because the last stories were still under copyright, that means that any interpretation of Sherlock smiling should not be free use and public domain, because the version of the character that was public domain was grumpy and mean, and they just wanted to get paid. Like, that's what it is. Like, they just wanted to get paid. So for example, the Henry Cavill series, or it's not the Henry Cavill series, but the Enola Holmes series with Henry Cavill as Sherlock Holmes. Enola Holmes was not invented by the Doyles. That came about in the early 2000s from I can't remember the young lady's name. She was actually an editor for some of the re-releases of the Sherlock Holmes stories. And once the character became public domain, she said, oh, it'd be neat if he had a sister and I could write stories about his sister. And so she started publishing the Enola Holmes stuff. The Doyle estate was fine with it. They didn't ask for money. They didn't do anything because it was public domain. As soon as Netflix made a movie about it, they said, well, hold on now. Hold on now. And the argument they used was that Henry Cavill's Sherlock was warm and affectionate. And the stories that had been made public domain, he was not warm and affectionate yet. And so they argued they needed to get paid.
I mean, it's fair.
That's what started this whole joke. Is that yeah, and that's the sad part, is it kind of has footing. Like,
yeah.
That's sort of fair. So I think they ended up settling. I'm sure they ended up getting paid. But now the point is, since all of the Sherlock Holmes stories are in public domain as of this month, Netflix never has to pay them again. They can keep cranking those out as much as they want.
So is that why the BBC Sherlock with Benedict Cumberbatch, he was basically a butthole?
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know if that is why. And again, a lot of the times from what I've read, most of the times when they adapted, they still just paid the Doyle estate.
Yeah.
Mostly because the Doyle estate really wasn't even asking for that much money. Like, it was in the thousands, not the millions. And so it was just easier just to pay them so that they'd kind of leave you alone and just let you make the darn show or movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what it boils down to, is this is really an article or a news story about Enola Holmes.
No.
And basically they didn't care until they cared.
Yeah.
And they, like I said, I think the judge was going to agree with the Doyle estate, but they just settled.
Yeah.
So anyway, now it doesn't matter. Sherlock Holmes can smile all day long, no matter who writes them.
I just like how that's been the headline for all the people posting about the story is,
well, because it's
Holmes
wild.
Can smile again.
Yeah, well, it's wild. Like
that's free.
And I kind of wish the case had gone all the way through, because it never really. Sometimes you want these cases to go through just so you get legal answers. So, like, for example, we still don't have the answer of if the first set of stories enter public domain, does that mean you can use things from the later stories that are not necessarily public domain yet?
Yeah.
You know, how do you separate the character from the individual works?
That is difficult.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's what I've been stuck on. Like, how do you even argue?
Yeah. So, like, for example, so I mean, like, it's kind of like, say, you know, in 100 years from now, episodes 4, 5, and 6 of Star Wars will be public domain. You can use those characters. You can remake the story, you know, whatever you want to do. But can I use character attributes of Luke Skywalker from episodes 7, 8, and 9 if I don't adapt 7, 8, and 9? You get what I'm saying? Like, what if I didn't try to make that story, but I still wanted grumpy Luke Skywalker who had failed?
Yeah.
Is that fair game? We don't know. We didn't get a ruling on it. So I kind of wish they'd let it go all the way. But anyway, that was a rabbit hole. But yeah, point is Sherlock Holmes is fully public domain.
One more, it's kind of a throwaway story, but I want to get some takes from you guys. So Nick Cage, we all love and know Nick Cage. He does not want to ever be in a Star Wars movie because he aligns himself with being a Trekkie.
Yes.
So when I quote, he says, "I'm not really down," when asked if he would ever join the galaxy far, far away. He said, "I'm a Trekkie, man. I'm on the Star Trek Enterprise. That's where I roll." So I ask you,
the most Nick Cage sentence ever.
I ask you guys, would you want to see Nick Cage in a Star Trek property?
Yes, but it can't just be any role.
Okay.
It would have to be a role that allows Nick Cage to be Nick Cage, but without ruining it.
Is there a role that he can do?
Well, see, I don't know, because he like I wouldn't want to get Nick Cage and then tell him he has to tone it down. You know what I mean? Like, that kind of ruined. Like, what's the point?
Yeah.
Like, that's not that. No. So he would either have to be okay. Stay with me here. I want him to be a Klingon war chief.
Yes.
Like, just off his rocker.
So I do want to read this quote. I actually just scrolled down this article, and he understands Star Trek on pretty much the same level that both Josh and Jason do. And I quote, I grew up watching William Shatner. I thought Pine was terrific in the movies. I think the movies are outstanding. I like the political and sociological messages. To me, what science fiction is really all about and why it's such an important genre is that you really can say whatever you want, however you feel. You put it on a different planet, you put it on a different time or in the future, and without people just jumping on you, you can really express your thoughts like Orwell or whomever in the science fiction format. And Star Trek really embraced that.
Yes.
He gets it. He gets it.
He does get it.
I would like to see him in Star Trek just because why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
He either needs to be a Klingon war chief where he can really Nick Cage out, or because we've seen, especially like, I don't know if you guys have seen Pig.
Mhm.
Pig is insane, but it does show that he can reel it in and be somber and be less, whoa.
Yeah.
So maybe an old Starfleet admiral who's getting everyone into some trouble.
I mean, he also had some range in Gone in 60 Seconds.
He is one of the best living actors.
Yeah.
He's just all about that indie B movie stuff right now.
It's like, it makes me think of that episode of Community where Abed takes a class and it's in like an elective, and the whole name of the class is Nick Cage. Great actor or really bad actor?
Well, you know what? The reason I brought this story in because it actually kind of takes us into our trailer reaction segment, because our first trailer that we're going to be reacting to is actually a Nick Cage movie that looks pretty freaking awesome. So it's Renfield. So it's either going to be really, really, really good or really, really, really bad.
I'm leaning towards really, really good.
I feel like it could be another like a Rubber situation. Like where it's like so ridiculous, like, well, I'm going to watch that over and over again for the rest of my life.
Yeah. The trailer looks awesome. Obviously, it's about vampires. Nick Cage plays Dracula. The music was awesome.
Yeah.
I like it. The action looks intense. It sounds funny, looks funny.
Bram Stoker's Dracula is one of my favorite horror novels of all time. And even in that ridiculous trailer, all of the lore is there.
Okay.
So like Renfield gets his power from consuming lower life, like bugs and rats and things like that. And the trade-off, like he says, is Dracula expects him to bring him larger life to feed on. But even like little subtle things like Dracula couldn't come into the meeting until he was invited in, which is why Renfield was trying to stop the guy from saying, come in. So like, it's neat. Like I'm leaning towards it's going to be really good. I'm kind of excited.
And some of those action scenes looks like they kind of like ripped them from Marvel movies because like the whole staircase thing.
Yeah,
definitely. That's Captain America.
Like, and normally I'm so against modernization of classic tales. This looks good, and they're kind of leaning into that ridiculousness and how it might tie into modern day ridiculousness.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone's saying they understand what it's like to have a boss like that. Okay, no, you don't.
You don't.
But you know, that mentality is prevalent right now, so it's kind of funny. Like I'm here for it. I think it'll be good.
Yeah, so it comes out April 7th, so it's actually coming out pretty soon. So I think that's going to have to be one that we talk about on this podcast.
Yeah,
that one might be a group movie.
Yeah,
might need to go see that together.
Yeah. So we have two more trailers. The next one is a Marvel trailer. So we have the latest trailer for Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. We have done a trailer reaction for Ant-Man already on this podcast. It was a couple of maybe a month ago, 2 ago. But this one unveils a good bit more about the story and a bigger look at the characters in this movie. So let's watch and react to the newest Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania trailer.
Engage.
This looks epic. And I don't just say that like, oh, it looks epic, man. No, like it looks like an epic.
Yes.
Like, this is going to be a big movie.
Yeah. I think Kang's armory is bigger than Thanos's was.
So it's going to look like it's going to be kind of dramatic. Like the last half of the trailer, it was showcasing the big fight that he had, like the big boss battle. And it looks like Ant-Man might be struggling to get out of that one. Is he going to die?
See, that's my thing too, is
Is he gonna
Kang's power comes from his suit.
Mhm.
So he is technically just a man, kind of like Scott. But he is a strategic genius. So I'm sure Scott could like go toe to toe in some instance,
Mhm.
but Kang still has the upper hand because he is so smart.
Kang is unhinged Tony Stark.
Yes.
Mm. Okay.
Like, what if Tony Stark really did go balls to the wall with being so convinced that his way was the only way to protect everything or to set things right? What could he have really accomplished?
If they kill him, surely he's going to be a big player in the multiverse setup for the King Dynasty and Secret Wars. I mean, he has to
Yes.
stay around, right?
Which is another thing. Is that in the beginning of the trailer you see him split apart.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's like a dream sequence, like of being
or
in
a
the quantum
multiverse
realm,
version of him.
or a multiverse version
Yeah.
of him. That if said Kang defeats him and kills him, there's still another one
Yeah.
True.
that can.
But I feel like Kang's also the kind of guy that could just kill all versions of him.
Yeah.
It's true.
Well, I mean, because and again, this is slightly different from the comics, but the MCU has set it up as Kang is the one who figured out the multiverse in the first place.
Yeah.
And he, in one version or another, put himself in charge of keeping it cohesive. And at one point even tried to whittle it down to one universe, which is what kicked off Loki.
Mhm.
I don't know why we decided that Ant-Man was the one who had to go so hard with his movies. Like, they
Yeah.
started out so light.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
they got super dark.
And that actually takes me to my big point. While watching that trailer, that this looks like a return to form for Marvel movies.
Yeah, it only took them 50 hours of content.
51.
It looks like
Yeah.
it's going to be grand scale, big, epic stakes.
So some folks were saying this will have, quote, Civil War level fallout.
I think Feige was saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at first I was just kind of like, okay. But then I really thought about it. The only reason Infinity War went the way it went is because Civil War fractured the Avengers.
Yeah.
If they had all been together, Thanos would have been stomped as soon as he got there.
Yeah.
So that's actually a pretty bold claim once you actually stop and think about it.
Yeah. A couple of takeaways for me. First, Kang's costume,
Baller.
like comic book accurate for the most part. Like
Oh, yeah.
As realistic as you could get with it in live action. Like that's
Less fabric, more.
less fabric.
More awesomeness.
Like they even have his face lit up with his mask, like a blue face mask, and he has the perfect green and purple suit and the cape. Like it's all there. Like that looks pretty awesome for a live action Kang. I think the big takeaway,
Obviously, MODOK.
MODOK.
confirmed, and we got a pretty good look at him. It was a very quick clip, but it confirmed that he is also pretty comic book accurate. Like it really is the big floating hand with itty bitty arms and legs.
So freaky.
It's kind of wild.
And I think the best part is in one frame,
You see him without
confirms
his, yeah.
it's Corey Stoll from the first movie. Remember in the first movie, he played the antagonist and he got sucked into the quantum realm and he's been there ever since. And so he has become MODOK. Out for revenge.
Interesting.
Like the way, okay, I'm sure it was just the frame that he's in, but the way they had to stretch his face.
Is it making you uncomfortable?
Yeah. Like it, obviously MODOK is not like.
He's a big floating head.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. How do you guys feel about this? I mean, this is live action. It's a big floating head in live action. Does this feel weird? Are we cool with it?
I just hope that it's not
Ridiculous.
a one-off character.
Oh, okay.
You know, like it's not just for the movie.
I mean, yeah, like in the comic books, MODOK is a big baddie.
Yeah.
So it'd be kind of stupid to kill him off in this first appearance. Like he has to stick around.
Oh yeah.
I don't know, Josh, how do you feel about this big floating head in live action? It could be cheesy, but
Yeah, I was gonna say it's all gonna come down to what they actually do with him.
Yeah.
Like if he's there just for shock value, or just as a glorified cameo, it's going to be weird and it's going to feel like a waste.
So yeah, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania is coming out. Where is it on my
February 17th?
There it is. Yeah, February 17th. So that's coming out pretty soon. We will be obviously reviewing this one in
the week of my birthday.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah. Valentine's Day.
Oh, one more thing about Ant-Man. Speaking of MODOK, like hopefully he's not a one-off character, but also, you know, Kang has multiple Kangs. Would
there be multiple MODOKs?
Well, that's not where I was going.
Oh.
But as in like MODOK not being a one-off character, like Kang not being totally put off to the side like most characters are in the MCU. Like you won't see them for like another year.
Yeah.
But in the comic books, like one of Kang's variants is Iron Lad. I'm trying to think of the character's name, but it'll tie into one of Wanda's kids. I forget which one. But yeah, anyway, they have a relationship.
Oh, okay.
Like going forward in the comic books. But I just hope to see that.
Well, I mean, that kind of goes back to what we believe Feige was the one that said it. How this is setting up big stakes for the future of the MCU. Maybe MODOK becomes a big player in what's happening.
Oh, yeah.
So we shall see. Coming out pretty soon.
Because this slow roll into the, Young Avengers is painstaking.
All right. Last thing we're doing before we get into our spoiler reviews of the first episode of The Last of Us, let's do a trailer reaction for the new A24 film, Beau is Afraid, starring Joaquin Phoenix.
Joaquin.
Bro, what is A24 on?
I literally don't understand what I just watched.
Right?
Yeah, I don't. What is happening?
So my takeaway is Joaquin Phoenix is definitely going for that Oscar again.
Yeah.
And yeah, A24 doing more crazy crap. This is going to be like Everything Everywhere All at Once levels of insane.
No, but I literally don't understand what's happening.
So the only synopsis for this film is a single sentence saying a decades-spanning portrait of one of the most successful entrepreneurs of all time. Literally tells you nothing. So this trailer started off just looking like, a depressed guy that's living alone and like no one, doesn't have any friends or anything. And it quickly progresses into an insane story of him getting kidnapped after what looked like a zombie outbreak. Nathan Lane shows up. And then it goes into what looked like a multiverse type of thing where he's stuck in what looked like some kind of animated TV show. And then he gets sucked into like a war zone, like WW2 type of thing. And then all hell breaks loose. So looks insane. I think it's going to be another winner for A24 and Joaquin Phoenix. I'm happy to see Nathan Lane doing stuff.
No, but what's happening though?
Yeah, I thought it was going to be like an A24 version of like Misery, but it didn't end like that.
I don't know what's happening. I didn't know what really happened in Everything Everywhere All at Once, but here we are. I'm leaving all this in. I'm leaving in the white space. They are literally speechless. I'm loving this.
Okay. So I noticed that in the beginning of the trailer that the brand on the microwave was also the brand on the microwavable food that he put in the microwave.
So is he responsible for all of it? Like, is he the brand? Because it says the most successful entrepreneur of all time. I don't understand.
Oh, that would make sense. I guess the brand in the microwave and the food was his brand. And yet he's still this lonely man.
Or is he? Is it all in his head?
Oh.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a thinker.
Oh, my God.
Because just as often as he's pictured alone in this rundown little room, he's pictured in a very nice home.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if this is an old man looking back on his life with dementia or something like that.
That's a good point. And even the poster of this movie, it's actually just 4 different versions of him throughout his life. So kid version, middle-aged version, older version, and old man version.
Point is, I want to see it.
Yeah.
Like, I'll definitely see it. Because okay. The thing is, with Midsummer, I went into it because a friend told me that it was a horror movie. Saw it. Definitely not a horror movie. It's disturbing. Yes. But I love that one. So, but on top of it, A24 always does like amazing things. And, of course, Joaquin Phoenix is an amazing actor. So
he puts a lot into his performances.
Definitely.
It kind of reminds me of Big Fish with
Ewan
McGregor.
Another weird.
Kind of reminds me of that, like just a weird movie with a weird story, but actually it's like intricate. So you're intricate. Thank you. All right, let's get into our spoiler review and discussion of the first episode of HBO's The Last of Us. Guys, this may be the best live-action adaptation of any video game ever.
Says you.
What are you saying?
I mean, there's still people out there that love the Mortal Kombat movie.
That was a solid movie. Josh and I liked that.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
But that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah.
The Last of Us, HBO. What do you guys think?
Yeah, like the opening sequence, like you get into the game. Me and Josh were discussing. I guess we were all just like discussing, but
I mean, I was there too.
Yeah.
It was Corey's house.
But I mean, we mentioned it, but you didn't anyway. The choreography to make it look just like what happened in the game.
Yeah, so that's my biggest takeaway, and I have a lot of talking points, but my biggest takeaway is that it definitely had some changes from what the video game story was and the scenes and everything that set up the bigger story. But for the most part, it was extremely faithful to the video game story. But there were also scenes that were like line for line, shot for shot remakes of exactly what was in the video games. Most specifically, the one that comes to mind is when, like, still back in 2003, when they get into the truck and are escaping with Tommy, that entire car ride was almost line for line, word for word, shot for shot, exactly what was in the video games.
Yes.
That's crazy.
But there were also some things that were completely different. Like we were talking about how the setup for what drives Joel to actually take Ellie out of the quarantine zone was completely different. Like his driving thing in the TV show was to go find his brother. And he just was like, oh, okay, we can use this as an excuse to take Ellie out of the quarantine zone to meet up with the Fireflies. But also at the same time, I can use this as a reason to go find my brother. In the video games, that was not really the case. His whole thing in the video games was that they were just going to use it as an excuse to double their cache of weapons and things like that. So he was just looking for an easy score.
I was going to say, I would argue the TV show gave him better motivation.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But yeah, that just goes back to my point. Like, in some ways, this story is actually a little bit better than what the video game had.
Well,
maybe not better.
We've talked about this before. I mean, anytime you adapt anything into a different medium, things have to change, right? Throughout history, it's been books going into movies. Obviously, you can't put every single thing that was in a book into a movie, or every single movie ever would be 8 hours long. Now we're in the new age of going from video games to movies. And the biggest thing that you have to adjust a little bit is a lot of the time you have to flesh out themes and motivation, because a lot of the time in the video game, it's just an excuse to get the story going, just to set things in motion. And because you are playing as that character, you get to bring a lot of that with you. Movies don't work that way. Movies, you have to have standalone characters, and what they're doing has to make sense because you're observing it. You're not participating in it. You're observing it.
Yeah, like in the video game, like there's a lot of your time in the game is spent just walking around and avoiding the clickers and things. You can't really do that in a TV show because that would there'd be a lot of white space. Like there'd be a lot of like nothing happening. So in the TV show, it all has to be story. And so they fleshed out a lot of that by adding backstory, adding additional scenes, adding different takes on scenes to flesh it out a little bit more.
But without really changing anything.
Yeah.
Which is good.
The big one that stood out is actually just the very first scene in the TV show where they actually went back all the way to, I think it was 1963 or 8 to actually give the backstory on the pandemic. And like the scientists were on the stage talking about how the fungus could become a big pandemic.
How nice was it to see John Hannah again? Well, I liked him a lot, and you know, I know him as Batty Artis in the first 2 seasons of Spartacus, the owner of the Gladiator School, and he was phenomenal in that. And he's done a lot of British shows and a lot of stage work and stuff like that. And I always liked him, and I always wondered what he ended up doing after Spartacus, because you just quit seeing him. Like, critics raved about him in Spartacus. I would have thought it would have like jump started his big TV career or his big movie career. He just didn't do anything, so it was nice to see him. I was just kind of like, oh,
you probably won't see him again.
It's that dude. Yeah, no, he's
probably dead.
Probably gone. But
no, so yeah, just going back, like that was a scene that was not even in the video game at all. But for context building, it was in this TV show and it fit really well.
It set up the stakes of the whole show, even though, you know, a lot of people know.
So that's the other thing. Like we talked about off podcast that if you've played the video games, it would be kind of hard to spoil this TV show because the story is very faithful to exactly what happened in the video games. But at the same time, there's actually some surprises. Like it's still a fresh thing to watch, even if you have played the video games.
Yeah.
And like I played the video game, the original one, probably 3 or 4 times at this point, all the way through. And this was still a fun watch because there was still just enough that was different to where it was a whole new experience.
So for those who have never played the game before or have not watched the show yet, the premise of it is that fungus, which this is a real thing and it's actually really creepy, but you can watch documentaries on it. There are certain fungi that are essentially carnivorous, and they can actually take over their hosts to further their own reproduction and food cycle. That's creepy. And the premise of the show is what if this fungus, these fungi, made an evolutionary jump where they could infect people, and it deals with the fallout of the pandemic and the ensuing essentially apocalypse that follows that, and it follows a man named Joel who is trying to escort a young lady who may be the cure to the whole thing to try to end the pandemic. So the thing that I think, I don't even want to call it a change, but the thing that maybe they highlighted a bit more than I think it was in the video games, they definitely gave it more of a zombie feel in the TV show, I think. Like, I don't remember there being a lot of like feeding in the game. I remember mostly transmission being done via spores. And if you came in direct contact with someone who's infected, obviously you could get infected.
Yeah.
But they did make it a little more zombie-ish. But
I feel it's for like
I didn't hate it. Yeah.
I feel like it's for the visual aspect. Because it's like you just saw a bunch of spores hanging around like, in the air. Like there's a lot of scenes where there was like a lot of close-ups of out of focus themes, and you just saw like dust everywhere.
Right. You'd be constantly like, oh my God, are the spores?
Yeah. They're like, oh my God. There's stuff happening.
And I think it actually takes me to my biggest point that I wanted to talk about is that, yes, there are changes in this show, but for the most part, I mean, well, obviously we've only seen one episode so far, but it seems like for the most part, the changes are to appeal to a mass audience. Like this is not meant to just be for a video game audience. This is meant to be for people that obviously just watch HBO, but for any people that maybe even don't play video games. And so I think that change might be to appeal to a mass audience. Like if these were,
like I said, I don't hate it.
Yeah, like if these were quote unquote not zombie, or like if they were quote unquote zombies, but they didn't eat anything, people that are not familiar with the video game might not really understand why
they're trying to.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with it. Yeah, like you were saying, but I think it is like one of those changes that is just to make it more broad, so more people can enjoy it.
Yeah, and with that, like I really enjoyed the scientist talk because they made it make sense, even though it's fictional.
They set up the world.
That's what I was thinking as I was watching it. I was like, oh, they just made this really real, and it's kind of terrifying.
Because they were saying like this certain fungi,
Sure.
Yeah, fungi can exist over temperatures of 96 degrees. But what if
94 degrees?
94 degrees.
96 would be cutting a little bit too close.
Yeah. 94 degrees. So like he was saying that like what if the world warmed up, in which it is. It's kind of like in Kingsman when Samuel L. Jackson was explaining his whole dastardly thing that like people are a virus, and what happens when you have a virus is that your body heats up.
Yeah.
Global warming. So it's like this whole concept, they made it make sense just in a couple of lines. And I loved that.
Yeah. We were talking about that as we were watching. We all watched it together. Obviously, Jason, we hope he's able to watch this. Hopefully he's back next week to talk about this with us, because he has not played the video game. All three of us have. It would be nice to have a little take on someone that's not played the video game to see how they're enjoying the show. But hopefully by next week, we'll have him in here. But yeah, the three of us that are here today watched it together. And as we were watching it, like the first, 20 minutes where they're setting up the outbreak, we were just like, this is so tense, but like we know what's going to happen, but it's still kind of suspenseful and terrifying. Yeah, because like they did it so well.
I mean, I already have like PTSD, like I guess I explained with y'all about airplanes.
Okay.
You know the big explosion was going to happen. Like you saw those planes flying by.
So that's another change. Like that was not in the video game at all.
Yeah.
And that was scary. Like I'm so glad they put it in.
Yeah.
So I have a fear of old people. It's like I do. Like it's something that makes me uncomfortable. I'm sure there's a scientific term for it. I literally get uncomfortable around like not just old people, but like decrepit old people.
Jesus. Yeah.
And no, I mean, like I'm being serious. Like the infirm and old, like it makes me exceedingly uncomfortable. Like I can't. I nope out of nursing homes. Can't do it. And I'm sharing, and you're laughing at me.
Yep.
And like I know it's an unreasonable feeling, but anyway. So as soon as we realized that that's how they were going to bring the virus into direct contact with our protagonists at the beginning, I got so just itchy.
Yeah,
it was creepy and
yeah, there was this shot where Joel's daughter Sarah was in the neighbor's house, and the shot was perfect because she was at the bookcase, like looking at books and stuff, if I remember correctly, and out of focus behind her was what Christian dubbed the twitchy grandma, experiencing her first like twitches and like becoming infected and stuff. But the way it shot was that Sarah never actually saw what was happening behind her.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
we're the only people who noticed.
Yeah. And but then as she's leaving the house, the dog is freaking out. And that's what got me. I was like, oh my God, the dog is freaking out.
As soon as dogs know.
Yeah.
When dogs know.
Yeah.
And that dog got out of there too. It noped straight out of there.
I mean, like you figure like, people know about old Yeller.
Yeah. He was trying to tell her.
Trying to tell her.
So let's talk about just the casting, because I think that was probably a lot of people's initial controversial takes on when they originally announced the casting for this show was that Pedro Pascal, really? That's not a Joel type of guy. So let's talk about Pedro Pascal. How do we think about him playing Joel?
I mean, he's doing great.
I thought he was perfect.
He's a fantastic actor. Like,
yeah, again, maybe not the first person that I would have picked.
Yeah.
But like, I can't say he's doing poorly. He's doing great. And I think, especially since he's become so famous for The Mandalorian, which you never see him, I think people have forgotten that, no, I mean, Homeboy can act. Like, he is a good actor.
Mm-hmm.
It's just his most famous role. He's in a mask the entire time.
Yeah.
If he's even there. I still think that probably 80% of his performance is just voiceover work.
Yeah.
He shows up for the 2 episodes where he takes off his helmet. But anyway, that's beside the point. No, I liked him a lot. And I was one of those people. I was just kind of like, because again, when they announced this, it was kind of peak Mandalorian-ness. And I was just kind of like, okay, so they just wanted to get someone who was popular.
Yeah.
Like, I was just kind of like, that's not a good sign.
Yeah.
But no, he did great. He's doing great.
Yeah. I thought he was, like, when I look at him in the show, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's Joel.
Yeah.
Because, like, I really wanted them to cast, like, the voice actor, Troy Baker, because obviously he is the character. And I thought if he just, grew a beard, he'd be a perfect fit for it. Because even in the video game, he actually did all the motion capture as well. Like, he was the voice, like, he actually was Joel in the video game. So I thought he would actually be a good fit for the live action one. But no, I when I see Pedro, I'm like, yeah, that's Joel. He's got the accent down. He's got the build down. He's got the personality down. I think it's great.
Yeah, I feel like it's more like they were just looking for, he looks like the guy that we modeled in the video game. Doesn't really matter who it is.
Yeah.
It was like, hey, that guy's cool.
Yeah. And then I think the other obviously big one was Bella Ramsey playing Ellie. And yeah, it doesn't really look the part, but when she actually starts showing off the personality, yeah, that is exactly Ellie from the video games. Like she's sassy, she's got a foul mouth, and she has the quick one-liners. We haven't seen much of her yet, So obviously we'll see more of her in the coming episodes. But I think from what we've seen so far, she's also perfect.
Yeah, I feel like if you're up to stabbing a soldier in the leg, that's a gun to your head. Yeah.
But no, they were saying when they were doing auditions for the casting for this show, when they saw her, they immediately knew she was the one because the personality that she was doing while auditioning was exactly Ellie, and she had never played the video games before. So as soon as they saw her audition, they're like, "Yeah, she's the one." So she is definitely.
She probably YouTubed it.
She did say that she has seen, since taking on the role, she did look up some videos from the game. She has still not played it yet, but she has still looked up
youngsters.
Yeah. So yeah, I think casting so far has been awesome. I think the setup for the story, even the slight changes in the story, has all been awesome. Yet again, still only one episode, so it might suck from here on out. Who knows? I don't think it's going to. I think from what they've done in this hour and a half of the first episode, I think it's going to be a great show. For anyone, even video gamers, non-video gamers, a show for everybody. It's going to be, I think it's going to take over some awards at the end of the year.
Oh, for sure.
Is it going to revive the zombie genre? Because it's been like a decade. It's about time again.
I don't know. I mean, is this going to be a zombie show? Because like the video games was not really a zombie video game.
But see, I remember when the video game came out, we even had almost this exact same conversation. It was they snuck out a zombie video game. Because like it was, but that's just not the way it was advertised.
Yeah.
And again, they changed it. They made it their own. It was their own thing. But fundamentally, yeah, it's a zombie show.
Yeah. Like I know when you get to the second game, The Last of Us Part 2, the zombie characters, the clickers, they're not really the antagonist of the game. Definitely more so than in the first game, where they are kind of the essential antagonist. But by the time you get to the second game, they're just kind of like a side character. And like the bad guys are just other people. And so I kind of feel like if they dive into being the zombies as the main antagonist in this first season, which the entire first season is supposed to be the entire first game, when they get to the second season and potentially third season, it's not going to be a zombie show anymore unless they completely change what happened in the second game.
Kind of like The Walking Dead.
I was going to say the greatest zombie show of all time, The Walking Dead. I mean, the zombies were not really the antagonists.
Yeah.
They were the setup, but it's always the people who suck.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all my thoughts for this first episode. Do you guys have any final thoughts? I'm going to go ahead and score it. So yeah, as we watch this 9-episode first season, we're going to give our updated score after each episode. So our scores are not going to be reflective of the current episode we just watched. Yeah. It's going to be an overall score that changes throughout the first season.
Cumulative.
So after one episode, Christian, what are you giving The Last of Us?
I'm going to go uncontroversial and go a 4.
You... Why?
Defend your opinion.
I'll say a 4 because, it's just the first episode. Like, I can't...
Did it do anything wrong in your opinion?
Wrong?
What brought it down for you?
There was only one episode.
So I'm going to tell you right now why I'm upset with your 4. Because I'm giving it a 5. I'm giving it a 5 out of 5. It was perfect.
I mean, perfect? No.
It was perfect.
Like, okay. Let me actually think. Okay, so I say 4 because it's the first episode. And, it's kind of like it's just a setup. And like you said, we don't know where this will go.
Okay.
I mean, obviously we love the game.
Okay.
But they may do something weird in the second episode.
So you're giving it a 4 based on what could happen next. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I feel like that's fair.
Okay.
That's fair.
Okay. Josh, what about you?
I'm going to give it 5 fungal infections out of 5.
See, this is where we should be at, Christian.
I'm being subjective.
Oh, does it all automatically color code?
Yeah, I got formulas.
That's dope.
Yeah, so on our spreadsheet of review scores, because of Christian, and without Jason's take, we are sitting at a 4.67 out of 5 after one episode of HBO's The Last of Us.
You know, Corey, for the longest time, I thought you were just like a math genius.
No.
Or just doing this in your head.
I got spreadsheets for this, man. I got spreadsheets.
I should have known.
There's no way I could be that smart with math. All right, so that is The Last of Us. Any final thoughts as we wrap this up?
I'm excited to see what happens so I can get to 5.
All right, well then do not forget to share this show with everyone, especially if you're watching The Last of Us, so you can share our thoughts with them and they can share their thoughts with us over on the YouTubes. We're on YouTube, youtube.com/@EatSleepNerd. We'll be sharing all of our episodes on that channel, so when we post a new episode, comment on that video. Let us know what you're thinking about what we think. And also click subscribe on wherever you're listening to this podcast. So whether you're on YouTube or on a podcast app, click that subscribe button or follow button. I've realized in Apple Podcast app, it's not actually a subscribe button, it's a follow button for whatever stupid reason. So click follow. That sounds stupid. But anyway, until next time, what should nerds be doing?
I feel like there's 3 important things
Yeah, what are those?
they should take care of.
Okay, yeah. Tell me.
Eat, sleep, nerd.
Very well done. Take it easy, people.